Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're decoding a massive, ancient message carved right into stone, a literal time capsule that resurrected a completely forgotten king. We're going to explore a civilization that made sure to record its greatest achievements for future generations to find, giving us this incredibly rare, unfiltered window into ancient Kalinga.
Okay, let's dive right in. Picture this, a rock wall that's been sitting out, fully exposed to the elements, for over 2,000 years. I mean, for 2 millennia, this damaged wall weathered violent earthquakes, massive political upheavals, and just centuries of total neglect. And yet, it somehow managed to preserve what might honestly be the ultimate comeback story of ancient India. This isn't just some old piece of rock. It's a surviving, defiant voice straight out of the 1st century BCE.
So, the name itself is a combination of Hathi, meaning elephant, and Gumpha, meaning cave. The Hathigumpha, or Elephant Cave, is located in the Udayagiri hills near modern-day Bhubaneswar in Odisha, and this cave holds the phenomenal record of King Kharavela. He was this incredibly ambitious ruler from the Magadha dynasty, who clearly wanted the world to remember his kingdom's glory long after he was gone.
Section 1, the Ashokan Shadow.
Now, to really grasp the triumph carved into our cave wall, we kind of have to look backward first, at the absolute devastation that struck Kalinga a century prior. Around 261 BCE, the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka invaded Kalinga, and the result? Total devastation. According to Ashoka's own records, thousands were killed, and massive swaths of the population were deported. This war was so uniquely destructive, causing such immense suffering, that it famously triggered Emperor Ashoka himself to adopt Buddhism and pivot to moral governance. But here's why this absolutely matters for our story. Ashoka's famous peace was bought entirely with Kalinga's ruin. While he found his enlightenment, Kalinga was left completely shattered.
Section 2, the boy who would rebuild Kalinga.
Well, eventually, that sprawling Mauryan Empire started to weaken, and Kalinga actually regained its independence. Out of the ashes of all that devastation rose a new local power, the Magadha dynasty, and with it, a young boy destined to restore his people's pride. There are 17 long lines of the Prakrit language written in the Brahmi script right there on the cave wall, and they tell us exactly how young Kharavela was prepped for the throne. He wasn't just taught how to swing a sword, he underwent this rigorous princely boot camp. We're talking writing, administration, military strategy, law, economics, religion, the whole shebang. He was getting this incredibly well-rounded education to mold him into a highly capable future king. What makes the Hathigumpha Inscription so wild for historians is that it acts as a chronological royal biography. That's super rare. We can literally track his progression year by year. We get to watch him grow from this highly educated boy to a well-trained youth, and finally into an energetic young adult who takes the crown, fully primed and ready to rebuild a nation that had been knocked to the ground.
Section 3, Conquests and Rebuilding.
Right after his coronation, Kharavela didn't just sit back and rule from some comfy palace. He went straight to work on the ground. He turned out to be a brilliant master builder and economist. He repaired the shattered city structures and expanded vital agricultural irrigation. But he also deeply understood that true nation building requires way more than just infrastructure, right? It needs culture. So he revived the cultural heartbeat of the kingdom by organizing grand public festivals and music performances. And all of this was fueled by a booming economy, driven by really strong maritime trade across the Bay of Bengal with places like Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. So, economy booming? Check. Infrastructure restored? Check. Now, Kharavela unleashes his military. He marches his forces north to strike back at Magadha. This is a huge turning point. Magadha was the very heartland of the former Mauryan Empire, the exact same empire that had devastated his people a century earlier. By directly challenging its ruler, Brihaspati Mitra, Kharavela was making a very loud declaration to the world. Kalinga was no longer a victim. They were a powerhouse.
Section 4, Religion, Art, and Culture.
But hold on, this ambitious northern campaign wasn't just about military revenge. It was fundamentally about reclaiming Kalinga's deeply held spiritual identity. The inscription proudly records this fascinating detail. Kharavela forced Magadha to return a sacred Jain image. A previous ruler of Magadha had actually stolen this sacred object from Kalinga years prior. So by bringing it back, Kharavela wasn't just winning a war. He was actively healing a cultural wound. It just goes to show how absolutely crucial sacred objects were in ancient politics and identity. Kharavela was also a massive patron of Jainism. He sponsored the construction of some truly breathtaking rock-cut architecture up in the Udayagiri and Kandagiri hills, including the famous Hathigumpha, which is known for its beautiful, intricate carvings. These caves provided much-needed shelter for Jain monks, while simultaneously pushing the boundaries of ancient engineering and art. He was a ruler who really knew how to perfectly balance military might with deep cultural devotion. Section 5. Decoding the Stone's Legacy. This magnificent rock record is a real game-changer for how we view ancient India, showing us these complex, thriving societies outside the major empires. But as with all ancient texts, historians still have to read it with a highly critical eye. I mean, the reality of historical research is tough. The physical text is heavily damaged, making parts of it pretty unclear. Plus, it's inherently biased. It is, after all, literal royal propaganda meant to hype up the king. To solve this, scholars have to treat it like a giant puzzle, carefully cross-referencing these 17 lines with archaeological evidence, other ancient inscriptions, and whatever literary sources they can find. When you stack these two great figures of the era up against each other, the differences are just striking. On one side, you have the conqueror Ashoka of the massive Mauryan Empire, spreading sweeping, moralistic Buddhist edicts all across India. And on the other side, you have King Kharavela ruling the fierce regional kingdom of Kalinga, supporting Jainism, and leaving his highly focused, victory-driven legacy on a single, massive inscription in the Hathigumpha cave. It's two brilliantly different philosophies of ancient leadership and survival. Ultimately, the Hathigumpha inscription teaches us a vital lesson. History isn't just written by the massive, sprawling empires. It's also written by these fierce regional kingdoms that rise from the ashes, rebuild their confidence, and heavily invest in their own unique art, religion, and infrastructure. It really leaves us to wonder, was Kharavela one of the absolute greatest rulers of post-Mauryan India? And honestly, what other incredible, world-changing leaders and completely forgotten stories are still out there, just waiting to be decoded from stone?